The mission is to, we call it inspire and enable creators to express themselves through sound. Most of the songs, you hear on the radio have gone through our software at some point. And in Nashville, we met, a bunch of famous record producers. These are the absolute top people in the music production. And, we were excited to meet them, of course. Just like, these are our customers. These folks define what the future sounds like. What was fun was they were kind of as excited to meet us because we make the software that allows them to sound like they do.
Hello and welcome to CPO Stories, where I take the opportunity to speak to the UK's biggest and best executive product leaders as well as some of the upcoming stars of the future. On this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Simon Cross. Music nut Simon started out working as a broadcast engineer at Global Radio before heading to the BBC and getting his first taste of product management before heading to Meta, moving to a selection of product leadership roles before taking up the CPO position at Native Instruments, a leading manufacturer of software and hardware for computer-based audio production and DJs, and inevitably responsible for some of the sounds on your favourite albums, as well as some of the ones you can't stand. Simon, thanks for coming and welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Jason. Thank you for the intro. I'm not sure which of your categories I fit into, but it's nice to be here anyway.
Well, we'll talk about that afterwards, and maybe I'll bump you up or bump you down based on your responses. But I'm also glad to see that you're living the dream. You've got all of the stuff behind you, all of the audio equipment. You're living the Native Instruments dream. I'm hoping that they're all made by Native Instruments, including the drums and all of the other kit that you've got there, and maybe even
the drums and the mics aren't, but this stuff here is most certainly our hardware, yeah.
There you go. Well, we'll start playing on that later if we have time. But let's talk about Native Instruments because, having flirted and kind of hung around the music industry in my time, I'm certainly aware of them and have used some of their stuff myself. But at the same time, probably a lot of people listening to this haven't. So just sort of on an overall level, how would you describe Native Instruments and the kind of the mission of the company, what it is you do?
We'll start with the mission. The mission is to, we call it inspire and enable creators to express themselves through sound. I really like that because it's exactly what we do. And everything we do kind of ties back to that mission. So our customers are like creative professionals around the world, as well as aspiring creative professionals. We serve kind of music producers and composers. We serve DJs with DJ software and DJ hardware. And we also make software that's used in post-production, particularly in TV, movies, and radio and so on. So most dialogue on most Netflix shows or BBC shows goes through our software to clean up the sound, so it sounds awesome coming through your speakers. Most of the songs you hear on the radio have gone through our software at some point. We make some of the world's most used mixing and mastering software. And yeah, we make hardware that allows people to create beats, create sounds, and music and performance is a very tactile thing. And so that's an important part of the overall experience. The last piece I'd say is Native Instruments, we make products, but we're also a platform company. We make products that allow other people to make products. And so many of the pieces of audio software and instruments that people might be using are running on our software under the hood. And that's kind of a really powerful part of what we do. We have a few brands. So Native Instruments is the one people have maybe heard of here. Isotope is another brand that makes our mixing. That's the team that makes our kind of mixing and mastering and audio repair software. And then we have another couple of brands in Brainworks and Plugin Alliance. And what Brainworks do is they make these audio plugins which are kind of exquisitely modeled after analog hardware. Right, so you're running them on your computer, but they sound valves and circuit boards and stuff like that. And you go visit those offices and there's boxes with the lids off and oscilloscope probes everywhere. It's very cool. So yeah, we basically make audio software for music and post-production.
Now, the word you just used there, which obviously is a bit cringe for people that are starting to get on a bit in life, but the cool, that does sound cool. Again, all kind of we talked about this before, some of the stuff that you've got and you've looked at, and it's it feels a lot cooler than I don't know, working on some B2B back office app or something. Although I'm sure maybe you have some of those sort of kicking around as well that you have support for yourself, but that must be an incredible attraction, both obviously for you being a music lover that you are, but also for the types of people that you get to come in. Do you feel that cool enables you to kind of attract the very best people that want to kind of come in and work on that kind of things, the people that are super passionate about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not cool in any way. Don't try to be. I feel I like it, right? Like I've been into music and audio, and I've been producing and DJing basically since I can remember. And to get to work on the tools that some of like the most innovative and creative artists in the world using is a real privilege. It's funny when you go and meet the. So I've just come back from Nashville, and in Nashville we met a bunch of famous record producers. A guy called Julian Bonetta who wrote most of One Direction's stuff, and Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso. That's him. Met a bunch of folks from a company called Infrasonic, who's like a big mixing and mastering house. And like we went. These are the absolute top people in the music production world, and we were excited to meet them, of course. Just like, these are our customers. These folks define what the future sounds like. What was fun was they were kind of as excited to meet us as we were to meet them, because we make the software that allows them to sound like they do, right? Like they wouldn't be able to make the records they make. They wouldn't be able to produce the music they create without our software. One of them, for example, is working on a bunch of remixes of Elvis records, the original recordings. And he's literally got the original magnetic tapes from, the 50s and 60s in the studio. And he's using our software to remove the sound of Elvis's rings off the microphone. Right. So that the next, so that the remasters of all those recordings can sound, amazing for the next generation. So that never ceases to blow my mind. I think in my sixth week at the company, we put a relatively large amount of time and energy into accessibility, which like not a lot of music software is that accessible. And genuinely, in the sixth week of my time at the company, turns out Stevie Wonder's a beta tester, and that was just one of those pinch yourself moments. And yeah, because of that, because we make some of the software that's used by the pros, it does attract people to come work for us. And one of the most terrifying things about working at NI is just how passionate and musical the employees are. Like, everybody plays something, right? There's a guy on my team, one of the product managers, where his job at NI is his side gig, because his main gig is getting on a plane on a Friday afternoon, flying to Ibiza and playing to 20,000 people, right? So we're the side gig. But that's just like everybody brings that passion to work. And it's, we're just surrounded by people who live this world, who breathe this world. That can be a challenge too. Like, our employees, are the customer. Well, they're a certain type of customer. And one of the things we have to work on is kind of balancing the strong internal voice and internal intuition with the kind of making sure we're speaking to people outside the company.
Yeah, that's that kind of, if I can kind of simplify it into that kind of subject matter expert debate that you get across all industries, right? Like people that worked in banking for their lifetime, and then they go and work for a bank SaaS company, and they start just assuming that they just want the things that they always would have wanted. And I guess, again, when it's something as, I don't know, visceral as music as well, like something that you get so passionate about, like, I know, and myself as well, like, just music is a passion, right? So like, you care about it so much. And I guess that could mean, and I don't know if it does mean, but it could mean that you're in a situation where if something goes wrong, like if something doesn't work, or if something that you championed doesn't really hit the spot, or gets bad reviews, or whatever, doesn't get picked up, it can make you feel worse than if you're just working on some
100%,
fairly average B2B app that you're not particularly passionate about. I've
worked on a bunch of products like that in the past, and I try and bring my full self to work, which is the strength and weakness again. But I try not to work on things I'm not passionate about. Like, I personally don't do a good job. I can't do a good job unless I give a shit. Like, it's part of what makes me get up in the morning and come to work. And yeah, it does. Our community and our customers are passionate people. They're artists, they're creative, and that passion goes both ways. And it's, I think, we take it personally, like hopefully in a constructive way. It's because people care. Every single person comes to work at Native Instruments because they want to make great tools for artists, and we don't always get it right. And sometimes we build something that is right, and a bunch of people over here love it, but a bunch of people over here don't. And one of NI's greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses is our legacy and our history. Right? NI has been around for kind of 25, 26 years. Most of the companies in our company have been around for a long time. Some of our software, like Contact, which is one of our most used products, the code is 20 years old. And like it's been used by people for 20 years every day. And when we make changes to it, that can be a challenge. We're not building in a greenfield site where we can start afresh. We're building in a space where we have decades of legacy, and again, greatest strength, greatest weakness. Yes, we take it personally, but I think that's fine. Like if we didn't take it personally, we wouldn't be good at our jobs. Right? Every single person comes to work trying to build something great. And one of the things I've been spending a lot of time on is reconnecting with our community. I joined 2 years ago, and we kind of hadn't been investing in like the product team, particularly spending time on our forums, in the Facebook groups, interacting with our passionate community. I've been doing more of that. I enjoy it. I learn a lot from it. It can be challenging because our community don't hold back, and I would never ask them to. Like, I want to hear it. I want to hear whatever it is. I've learned just a huge amount, and there are changes we can point to in the product roadmap that I first learned about them because I was interacting with someone from our community on Facebook or on our forums. So yeah, that's a long answer to your question. But passion, yes, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's like I remember when I did my stint with Dice, who have recently been acquired. It's in the news, so that's exciting for them. But yeah, Dice, a ticket company, not quite the same vibe as making the musical instruments and the plugins, but at the same time still populated by wall-to-wall, super passionate music people, and again, including myself. And like one of the best things about walking into the office every day was just being surrounded by that passion. And I guess also when things aren't going maybe that well in certain areas, or like an initiative's being delayed, or there's sort of disagreement between some stakeholders or something, you still have that kind of common thread to hang on to, which can sort of get you through it. Do you find that? I mean, obviously everything always goes well at Native Instruments, but like, do you feel that kind of helps you then kind of get through the tough times as well as make the better times better?
I'm not sure. Like, I think one of the hardest things, I mean, every product manager, every company has to balance this, but I'm finding it particularly resonant and important here at NI is like the balance between like time, quality, and features. The iron triangle, right? You only get one chance to make a first impression, and so everyone wants the first version of the product to be really great. We can never get everything we want to get in, and it sucks to kind of leave stuff on the cutting room floor in V1. And the challenges of working in a perpetual software business model, we should talk about that later. It's like the business plan requires us to kind of ship things when we say we're going to ship them, and so shipping to time is a bigger factor in our world than it is in some other people's worlds. I find that very uncomfortable. I'll be clear. It's like it's uncomfortable. I don't like shipping to a deadline, but sometimes we have to, and that requires some trade-offs that aren't always easy. But that's the job of product management, right? And what we spend a lot of time talking about, is how do we balance those things, right? Like, when should we delay the product? Because if we don't have this feature, it won't be great relative to the competition. We'll get slated and we'll lose our first impression. I've got 3 or 4 examples that we can talk about if we want to get into it. But yeah, I mean, that's something we spend a lot of time doing. And again, because the employees are so passionate, like that voice of just quality and innovation and features has a very strong weighting in the argument. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And before we go into that, I do think that there's an interesting point around, kind of the passion and the kind of the mindset. And I think that also to some extent, these days kind of a controversy, which is around AI, like the use of AI for creative works, which is, you're talking about innovation, and of course AI is kind of the forefront of that. But yeah, there's controversy in creative circles about AI being trained on stolen material. That's a part of it, but also now people kind of using AI to generate stuff in the first place. And kind of strikes me that a company like yours is going to be, going to get a lot of pressure to have an answer to the AI question, in the sense of like either putting AI features into your platforms to start to be able to generate stuff, but that also might alienate other parts of your user base because they're sitting there wanting to be kind of real and kind of eschew some of that stuff. So how does that balance work? How has AI impacted you so far? Is it, do you have kind of any exciting initiatives going on? Like, what does that look like for you?
Okay, cool. That's a great question. It's going to take about 15 minutes to do it justice.
That's all right. We can do it. We can do it.
So the first thing is, like, AI is a tool, right? It's a tool. It's a technology tool. And the question is, well, how do you use that tool, right? Or how do you take that tool and apply it to a real customer and user problem? And so that's where we always start, right? So we've got some AI principles, right? First of all, we've got some AI principles, and nothing we do violates these principles. And the first is we are always going to use AI that's been ethically trained, right? Like, this is a big area of debate right now. It's in a legal gray area. It's being debated in courtrooms and parliament houses around the world. And, we'll see where we get to. But, ultimately, we make tools for artists. That's what we do. We make tools for artists. And no artist wants to use a tool that is exploitative of other artists, right? None of the artists we speak to want that. So, that's just a fundamental principle. And the second principle is never take away creative control, right? Like, again, we make tools for artists. So what do artists want? They want tools that allow them to be creative and have control over the creative output. And every AI tool we've built and every AI tool we're working on right now meets those principles. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So we have this AI product called the Mastering Assistant, or the Master Assistant. And what it does is, so mastering is, for those outside the music industry, mastering is the process you go through after you've mixed a record to make it sound really good on the radio, on your hi-fi, right? It's like the mastering, it's the final process.
Hi-fi. Do we still call them hi-fis?
I'm over 40, so I'm gonna keep doing it. I mean, I've got some very nice monitor speakers, so that's great. I don't know if they're hi-fi. And so that is a skill in and of itself, mastering, right? It's, there are people whose only job is that. So we have a thing called Master Assistant, and it can listen to your track, and it can listen to a track you want your track to sound like, and it will build you a mastering chain, right? So a mastering chain is compressors, EQs, a whole bunch of audio processing that results in a great sounding record. Now, there are other mastering services out there that are basically like, you give us an audio file, we'll master it, and we'll send you back the finished file. Done.
Yep.
That's not what we build, right? What we build is a product, a mastering assistant that builds you a mastering chain. So it says, okay, I've listened to your record. I've listened to the record you want it to sound like. Here's the mastering chain I think you would want. And that has two cool outcomes. One is you can change everything about it. Right, you can reorder things, you can change the frequencies, the cutoffs, the attacks and the releases. You can change everything, right? So it's a great starting point, but you can take it wherever you want. So you never lose creative control. And the second thing is, for people who don't know how mastering works, they can go from, I don't know how mastering works, to, oh, that's what a mastering chain looks like. And I can play around with it and I can learn it. So we literally, AI is just, it's AI powered, but the approach is assistance. How can we assist you? How can we take away the drudgery? Like, creativity is a terrifying thing, right? You're faced with a blank sheet of paper, a blank audio project in a digital audio workstation. It's a very scary thing. So, like, a lot of what we're thinking about is like, how do we overcome some of these creative barriers to entry? We just shipped a bunch of tools in our product called Contact, called tools, literally capital T tools. And there's a chords tool, and there's a phrases tool, and there's a patterns tool. And these things aren't AI. They're rules-based. They're just rules-based. They're not AI, but they're assistive. They help you overcome a creative barrier to entry. And there's a lot of problems like that in the creative process. And that's how we're applying AI. We're fortunate enough to have what we call the audio research team, a bunch of kind of PhD, PhD type folks really thinking and working at the cutting edge of their space. And like those folks are kind of out front exploring what new technology can do. And then as they develop new ideas, we figure out how to put those into the products. And then, so we've got a bunch of stuff like that coming out a little bit later this year, and some stuff next year. But everything follows those principles. Like everything's ethically trained. Right? We want to make sure that we're appropriately using training data, and everything is all about never taking away creative control.
Well, love to hear it, because, whilst those kind of auto-generated things that you see on YouTube, or like Freddie Mercury singing Pantera or whatever, like all these things that people are creating, they're kind of fun, but like I still want people to be making real music. I mean, it's that's what it's all about, right? But speaking of making things, you've got obviously a team that you look after at Native Instruments, product management team, and you kind of touched a little bit on how maybe it's a little bit different to some of the stuff that you might expect from like a B2B SaaS company. But how does product management look like at Native Instruments? How big are the teams? How do you focus them? What's the kind of landscape there from a product management perspective?
So, I mean, it's a pretty classical setup in many ways. Like we have a bunch of product teams, and each product team has a PM, designer, and a bunch of engineers, and a QA often, or couple of QAs. We have one other interesting discipline at NI we call sound design, because a lot of products are, here's what it looks like, and here's the buttons and the controls. For us, the actual customer outcome is a sonic outcome. And so the UI and the UX is about controlling the sonic outcome. And so our sound designers curate the sonic outcome. Like they design the presets. They are what we call the golden ears. So like they decide if it's good or not, right? And I love working with those folks. They're awesome.
Do you have to ensure their ears for like £1 million an ear or something like that?
I don't know if we do or not, but like certainly, certainly that is having good ears is a core part of that job. They're a cool bunch of folks. So like that's broadly what the teams look like. It's pretty standard. There are some differences, I think, though, and one of my big beefs, I guess, is that I spent most of my career building, mobile, web, cloud stuff at relatively extreme scale, and those environments have certain physics about them, right? Like when you want to update a website, you push some code to the web server. The next time someone loads the web page, they didn't even have to install an update, right? And even on mobile at this point, it's all happening in the background. No one's like manually updating apps. So, and when you're in the cloud, you completely control your runtime environment, right? You own everything. You can see it all. You have full control over it. We make C++ desktop software, mostly. Like most of what we do is C++ desktop software running on your computer. And that is where the majority of music still gets made. And that world has some different physics, right? So when we ship an update, people have to do work to get it. Many of our customers don't want their workflow disrupted. And so, I was doing a customer visit in Nashville last week, as I was saying, and one person was like, oh yeah, I'm like deliberately 2 versions behind. I don't want to be on your latest version. It's like, no. Many of them, like, they literally take a week every year to do their updates, right? And that's how it's thought about. And that behavior and those physics have a fundamental impact on our product management processes, right? A lot of people now are like, oh, why aren't you doing multivariant A/B testing and changing things every day? And I'm like, don't get me wrong, that way of working is extremely powerful, and it's how I've worked most of my career. It's not the right way to develop C++ desktop software, which is mission critical for people's workflow, right? Like you just have different ways of working in that. And then the other big difference that I've learned is how much a company's business model impacts their product development process. And so much contemporary product literature makes the assumption that you're building a web or mobile app, and the business model is some form of subscription or some kind of stable revenue stream which isn't impacted by the delivery of a new SKU on a certain date, right? And again, when you're working in those worlds, when it's a subscription enterprise SaaS, the business model allows you, in fact, it enables you and mandates that you're kind of continually iterating, continually shipping, right? In our world still, and we do have subscriptions, and they're growing really quickly right now, but we still sell perpetual licenses for desktop software. That's still the majority of our business because that's what our customers want. That's how our customers want to buy our software, or existing customers do. And for that, the way that business model works is, Ozone, take Ozone, for example, which is one of our major products. Currently, we're on Ozone 11, right? Ozone 11 is awesome, really good. And, people who were on Ozone 10 paid an upgrade fee to get Ozone 11. Right now, we're working on Ozone 12. And Ozone 12 is going to come out. I can't say when, but it's coming out. And so, the business model forces us actually to not add anything to Ozone 11. It forces us to say, no, we're going to build these new features, but we're going to store them up until we're ready to ship Ozone 12. And Ozone 12 will have, feature A, B, C, and D, which people are going to love. And that's going to cause them to pay an upgrade fee from 9 to 11 or 10 to 11 or whatever it is. And that business model affects how our product teams work. Right? We are still iterating. We're still agile. Like the Ozone team have shipped a beta every 2 weeks to the beta community. So we're still working in that iterative way. But if you're not in the beta group, there's 18 months between these big releases, and that's when you get the value. And I'd love to change that, actually. I want us to be shipping value to our customers much more frequently. But one thing I've learned is it's not actually a process question. It's not a capabilities question. It's actually fundamentally a business model question. And as more of our customers relatively move towards subscription or choose subscription as the way they come into the Native Instruments product set, we'll actually be able to, it'll be easier to justify more that way of working. And that's what our subscription customers want, right? They want something which is continually evolving, continually improving, and there's new tools that they can use in their creative workflow, arriving all the time. And that's what our subscribers get.
It's kind of like almost without wishing to kind of, mention, they're not really a competitor, I guess, but like the creative cloud model, right? Which is like back in the day, they would have box software and you'd buy the new version then, and eventually they went all in, right? And it sounds like that's not where you're at, but is the trend definitely in that way? Or do you feel that because of the unique characteristics of the music industry and the people that are in it, that actually the kind of the box software version is going to, or the model is going to kind of continue for quite some time?
Yeah, we're in a hybrid world. We're very comfortable with that. A lot of our customers want to buy the software outright, and it's on us to put the work in so that there is new features for them to buy into in future, right? And a lot of our customers want that. That's what they want. That's what they expect. That's what they need. And our job as a team is to satisfy our customers' needs. There are, however, an increasing number of people who, for whom buying, $2,000 worth of zip files is not the way they want to buy software, right? That's not actually what they want. What they want is the ability to access a wide creative tool set for a nice monthly price, and the ability to kind of pause that payment if they take a break from what might be their hobby. Right? A lot of our customers aren't doing this professionally. They're hobbyists, and they might be aspiring professionals, or they might be people like me who have realized that they're never going to be Hans Zimmer.
No, you and me both. You and me both.
Right, but I still produce on the weekends because it lowers my blood pressure and makes me feel like a better person. So there's just different groups of people, and they want to buy our products in different ways. And our job is to enable those different ways. And so that's how we approach it. It's pretty simple. And a lot of our new customers are choosing subscription. And when you look at the people choosing subscription, they are mostly new customers. And our existing customers, they're continuing to buy the perpetual software as we release it. And our new customers are primarily choosing to buy into our ecosystem through subscription, and that's cool.
Yeah, well, again, it's kind of putting the customer front and center, right? But it also feels that you might then need, if we can kind of classify different types of product manager, you might need kind of different types of product manager to support different types of different parts of your product line, right? And again, you've got the keyboard on the right, or your left, I guess. You're making actual hardware instruments as well. You're making the subscription software. You're making the box software. I don't know if you've got some software that goes out still on vinyl, but you've got all these different skill sets, I assume, that you would need to have to be effective at some of those different types of product management. So does that mean that you have to have a kind of a portfolio of different types of people within the organization that can support those different models?
Yes. And we have product managers that work on our web products that literally are working the way I'm kind of used to working, which is, ship a diff, the product changes on refresh. And we've got people designing the next generation of our hardware products, where the decisions you take about what are the ports on the back, what chipset are you using, those are decisions that, you make 2 years before the product comes to market, and you have to live with those decisions for 10 years. So that requires a completely different way of thinking. Over in this world, the cost of a mistake is low because you can fast fix, and, you can just, fix forward and all that kind of stuff. Whereas over here, the cost of a mistake is high, and, it just requires a different way of thinking. It's the same product management skill, which is, where is the market going? What does the customer want? What are the trade-offs between, price, quality, speed, all of those things? It's just that the kind of consequences of the decision and the amount of kind of upfront thinking you have to do vary. And we have product managers who are just more comfortable in each of those worlds.
But a lot of product managers, I know you and I have spoken about this before, there's this kind of idealism about product management for many quarters, driven by many of these books that are behind me, and I'm sure you've got some in a different room in your house as well. There's this kind of idealistic view or vision of product management, and whether any companies, you worked at Meta for a bit, maybe that was more like that, maybe it was not under the covers, who knows, maybe you can say, maybe you can't, I don't know, like a careless people type expose coming out. But there's this kind of idea that there is this idealism, and it feels on the one hand that that's going to affect you as well. And obviously then you've got these people, maybe like new people coming in, and you'll be trying to motivate them to do things in a way that's not that. But then it also feels on the other hand, as we discussed earlier, that there's almost like the passion for the music and the kind of, it's going to kind of come priced in, and they're going to know that it's going to be like that because it's the kind of world that they're passionate about. So do you have any kind of idealism versus pragmatism battles or approaches that you use to kind of get people to fall in love with the kind of the realities of what it's like at your place?
Again, another great question. I think, so first of all, I think there's a change happening in the product management community generally. And I'd be interested in your take on this as well, Jason. I've just picked this up by going to product meetups and listening to the challenges that product managers in general are facing today, right? And there's this thing where, and look, I'm one of those people. I kind of came into product management post the big recession, the Great Recession in 2008. I lived in Silicon Valley from 2013 to 2016. And basically, we've been in kind of zero interest rate growth mode for more than a decade. And a lot of contemporary product literature was written when, I wouldn't say growth was easy. Growth's never been easy. But there was a growing market, there was a growing consumer segment, and just money was cheap. And so a lot of the focus was on you could be idealistic because there was a tailwind of growth in the world, right? And it was really focused on top line, and when either top line revenue or top line product metrics, like MAU, and engagement. These are top line product metrics, right? They're the thing that most PMs are acclimatized to think about. How do I improve the conversion rate? How do I improve this, that, and the other? We're not in that world anymore. We're in a world where money is expensive. Like the cost of capital has increased significantly. The costs of operating have increased significantly. Cloud fees, this, that, and the other. And there's just less secular growth. In the industry, like people have less money in their wallets. The pandemic caused a whole bunch of inflationary effects. And that means, I think, the modern product manager now is or needs to be as focused on the bottom line as they are on the top. And that is quite a big change. I think a lot of PMs could assume their costs were fixed or they didn't have to worry too much about them. And it was like, okay, given that cost base, how do we grow top line? Whereas now I think a lot more PM, and this is not just me and our teams, like this is every PM I've spoken to at every product meetup I've been to in the last 2 years, is like having to think about their gross margin or their profitability and actually then optimizing their bottom line. Now, the good news is that thinking about your bottom line or optimizing your cost base, you can do the same, you can apply the same product skills to that, right? And actually a lot of some of the work I was doing at Meta before I left was this kind of stuff. Like, Meta was spending billions on human review and like AI and compute. And you're reaching the point where there's the best way to free up capacity to do the innovative thing is to save capacity in the inefficient thing. And so like, I think a lot of PMs can look at their costs now. And when I say the costs, sometimes it's people costs, sometimes it's like cloud costs, sometimes it's time costs, like the time it takes us to build this feature. That's a discipline that I think is more important now than it's ever been. We've always thought about ROI, really, but a lot of PMs in the past would think, for the same I've got 3 options, which of these 3 has the highest return? Whereas now, I think there's more of a question of, thinking about the I is as important as thinking about the R. And like that's like, I think a new thing. And particularly in hardware, that makes a big difference because you're talking about like not digital cost, right? You're talking about physical cost, right? The BOM, shipping, component availability, those decisions live with you for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly. I mean, I agree with what you say. And, obviously, again, we've chatted about this before. I think it is becoming more of a common theme. And, times are hard these days for idealists in many ways. But I also think that, exactly as you say, there's a body of work which seems, kind of based on that old word that you say, but also probably cherry-picked examples. I've spoken to people that worked at companies that have been used as examples by some of these books. And they're like, yeah, no, it wasn't like any of that. Like it was, that was just for a little bit and then it went back or whatever. And, I don't deny the power of the examples. And I don't think that it's bad to have these aspirations. And this is one of the things that I say to people when, like, if I give a talk about, like, one of my talks is like, yeah, product management isn't like the books. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. It doesn't mean the books are bad. You should probably try and do those things. Like, look at something like Inspired and tell me one thing that you disagree with from that book as a principle. What you should be
100%.
disagreeing with is the fact, or maybe angry about, is the fact that it's possible to do that in your context for whatever reason. And I think the biggest takeaway from what you said and what I strongly agree with is like, you can do good product management in many different ways. There are principles that we hope make it better, but ultimately you've got to understand your own business. And if you understand your own
100%.
business, then you can understand what good product management looks like and what you need to do for your customers and for your business.
Exactly. Let me say again, idealism is good. Like having the product management, not like one of the things we talk about, having a North Star, like knowing where you want to get to, how you want to operate. The pragmatist gene on top of that is and this is definitely my the bee in my bonnet, is like when you read those books, I think a bunch of people have been critical of teams for operating not like that.
Yes.
And when you delve into it, it's not because they don't want to operate like that, or they disagree with operating like that. It's that the physics of the world in which they live, the business physics, I just use those words, the business physics, right? mandate a different way of working. Like, the business plan in our company is built around what products are we going to release when. And so a product team's job is influenced by the business plan in a way that at Meta, I was never influenced by the business plan. Because at Meta, most engineers, most product managers just worried about active users and engagement. And then that engagement got turned into money by another team who kind of ran the ad systems, right? And so most PMs at Meta are insulated from the dollars and cents because there's a product separation between shipping value and features and the revenue that comes from it. A lot of other companies, not just native, many other companies, the revenue is directly tied to what a product is, when it ships, the price that you sell it for, and how many people buy it, and over what period of time. Like we call it the P times Q times T. The price times the quantity, and then time is a factor in that equation as well. And that for product teams at many companies is a huge driver of how they have to think and behave relative to like people at other companies whose job it is to maybe ship a diff every day that improves the conversion rate of a checkout flow by 0.1%. And I'm not saying either is wrong. Both are right? Both, they're just different.
Yeah.
And that's been one of my big learnings moving from Meta, where, I could operate in a different way, to frankly learning from my product teams at Native, like a different flavor or a different facet of product management that they are really good at, and is an area where I was not so good at. Now, hopefully the flip side works, which is I've learned some things in my past, in my experience, that might help us at NI move a bit quicker, change how we operate a little bit. We're starting to move towards things like more iterative shipping of binary software to beta testers, and being more iterative in our build, design, build, feedback loops. So I'm trying to build, I bring some of those skills, but it would be inappropriate of me, and I wouldn't have survived at NI for 2.5 years if I'd showed up and said, why aren't you doing it like Meta does it? Yeah. I know what I'm doing, you don't. That's not the case. I show up with a box of tools, and some of these, from my experience, and there's a whole bunch of tools in the NI toolbox, which I didn't know about. And the question is, what are the right tools to use in the right moment for our business and for our customer? Our customers expect different things to what different customers at different companies expect. And our business physics, make us have an influence on how we work. So that, right? Yeah, the books are great. The books are great, and everyone should read them. But I think there are different products, and there are different companies, and there are different business models that impact on product management. And I do think like we're in a decade where there's a little less of a tailwind.
Yeah. Well, headwind probably in certain industries as well. And AI contributing to some of that as well, to be fair.
Disruption. So, we're living through a big period of disruption. And things that just as we did with mobile in 2012 to 2013, just as we did with web in kind of 2000, 2008, like that period. Like we're Web 1 and then Web 2. We're just living through another one of those major cycles of disruption, and it's exciting and uncomfortable.
Well, like some of the music I like to listen to. Right, lightning round, just to kind of wrap up. Best gig you've ever been to, since you're such a music head?
Oh man. Loads. Death Cab for Cutie at the Berkeley Coliseum, I think it's called. This amazing outdoor venue, my favorite band in the world, sun going down behind the stage, gin and tonic, sunshine, bonkers good.
Sounds very swanky. What's the best piece of career advice that you've ever received?
I'll give an answer which has been the most important piece of advice for me. I'm not sure it's generally useful advice, but one of my old managers said to me, Simon, you're a strong opinions, weakly held kind of guy. The problem is not everyone knows they're weakly held. And that was just like, I was like, shit. And like that I think that's true. Like, and that like often people's greatest strength is their greatest weakness, and like putting an idea on the table and seeing how people react to it is a thing that's worked for me. But like as I've got more senior, like I don't feel any different, right? I'm
Yeah.
still the same, you know, incompetent random dude I've always been. But like people see me differently because of a job title that I forget I have, and like I've been working really hard on trying to counteract that. Like, and I'm being explicit. I'm using words like, here's a straw person I want you to challenge. And then I'll say my thing. Or my intuition is X. And like, I'm trying to signal to people around me that like, here's some stuff I have in my head. I want you to challenge me on it. I don't want you to say, well, Simon said, so we're doing it, right? If ever that happens, like I know I've really screwed up. So that's probably the most consequential piece of advice I've ever personally received. Yeah.
Well, you got the right name for Simon Says, though, so I'm sure that joke's never been made before, right? So
Never been made before now.
Most important trait in a product manager?
Stay humble. Be humble. Like, you know, every PM would like to think they know the answer. The customer knows the answer. And, you know, stay humble.
Absolutely. If you had to start your career over, what would you do differently this time? Read more. Read more. Like I think back to, it's funny. I think back to some of the decisions I made or the situations I was in when I was early in my career, and like how little I really knew. Like, it's easy to say. You probably felt you knew everything though at the time.
100%. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I wish I'd written more. I guess another part of it is like, I wish I'd taken more time to understand the craft of the other disciplines we work with. Like, I'm an engineer by background, so I have a relative, like I still code on the weekends. I'm not a world-class engineer, but like I have an affinity with that craft, which goes beyond some product managers' affinity. I don't have as natural an affinity with design. Yep. And this is something that like, I like to build things. I like to hack stuff. Like I come with the engineer gene, and I wish I'd taken more time earlier in my career to really understand the mental, like the starting space of designers. And I hope I've kind of counteracted for that as I've gone through in my career. But yeah, if I think back, like that's a discipline and a craft that I wish I'd taken more time to learn.
Absolutely. And I think that can also be kind of applied to, sales and customer support and customer success, account management, finance, all of the things.
100%.
I think the biggest thing that I see is like you get product people expecting all of these people to come to us and then not making one single damn step in their direction, which doesn't really seem like a fair balance.
And that's what, like, actually, to take it back to a question you asked earlier, what was the best piece of career advice you got? And I kind of answered with a personal answer. Actually, there is a generic piece of advice, which I come back to again and again. So back in 2014, I was working on kind of partnershipsy stuff for a bit. And we had a training course where they brought in an FBI hostage negotiator. And this guy was like...
Chris Voss, the Never Split the Difference guy, or not that one?
No, different one, I think. But it's a 2-day training course, learned many things. But like with any of these things, there's one nugget that you take away. And this nugget was brilliant. He was like, look, if you ask 100 people, are you rational? How many would say no? No one. Everyone would say, I'm rational, right? So if people are acting in a certain way, it's because of their rationality. And so if you don't understand how they're acting, you've got to ask yourself the question, what do you know that they don't know? And most importantly, what do they know that you don't know? And like every successful product, there's a product management kind of glass ceiling to some degree. And the people who really make it, the folks I love working with, are the folks who are able to sit at that intersection of all of these different functions and disciplines. Again, another statement, one of my old product leaders said, people think product managers are at the center of everything. right? Because they're the ones, with the slide deck and they're the ones running the presentation to the executive or whatever. No. Product managers are at the edge of everything, right? There's engineers and there's designers and there's marketing and there's customer support and there's sales. And product management sits in this really unstable balance point at the center. Right? It's like, and the job of product management is like, okay, how do you balance all of these equities, right? How do we balance the time to market with features versus the technical debt we create versus the technical debt we pay off versus the fit and finish of the UI versus the price versus all of these things? That's the product management job. It's deeply uncomfortable. And the best PMs, I think, are able to do that exercise where they take the time to understand the perspective of the other, where that other is the customer or the customer support or the engineering team or the design team, such that the engineer can sit at the product manager can sit at that balance point. That story, 100 people, all rational. What do you know that they don't know? What do they know that you don't know? I've told that story 1,000 times, and I think about that. I think about that story 1,000 times a day in every meeting I'm in every conversation I have. Like, what do they know that I don't know, and how can I learn that thing so I can better position myself at this, myself or my team at this kind of like balance point between all of these competing equities.
Yeah, it's like some kind of complex multi-dimensional equation or something that's got no actual solution. All you've got to do is optimize it to get the kind of the best balance.
Yeah, you can never make product management makes everyone unhappy. Some of the time,
equally unhappy, as that's the best you can do.
Well, something like that.
Nah, obviously not. But why should product people work for Native Instruments?
I think a few reasons. I mean, one is we build tools for people who change what the world sounds like. And that is just fun and cool, right? We make paintbrushes for painters, and seeing what they paint, audibly rather than physically, I just find deeply satisfying. Just when people, artists that you respect and love and who create joy in your heart when you hear their music, when they made that using your tools, that feels very fulfilling. So that's one piece. We're applying new technology to create new sonic outcomes, and that's fun. Bleeding edge of what's possible, that's fun. And then going the people we work with, the customers, say like Stevie Wonder is a beta tester. And that is just bonkers. It's bonkers. Like people who are out at the forefront of music and audio, they're using our tools to do that job. And again, that's just a really fulfilling thing to work on. And the people at the company are just cool. They humble me every day. They surprise me every day. They're passionate, capable people. And it's just fun to be around people like that. That's why I came to work today.
Well, there you go. I mean, what better kind of advertisement than that? So hopefully you'll get a few people rushing in your direction to join in the fun. But if they want to do that, where can they come and rush towards to connect with you or find out more about the company?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way. And then, we have a website. Go play with the website. Go play with the tools.
There's some free stuff on there as well, right? Free plugins.
There's some free stuff on there. Free plugins, free tools. And like my favorite conversations are the ones where, people just, they don't just tell me they're interested in what it's like to work for NI. They can tell me all the things we need to be doing better. If you ever meet a satisfied product manager, worry. And there's plenty we can improve. And some of the most fun conversations I have with people who are interested in working here is like they've already used the stuff, they've already surgically picked it apart, and they've already kind of turned that into like their top 3 things we should change, next week. And I love having those conversations. But yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Well, I'll make sure to pop that on the show notes, and hopefully I'll have a few people coming to you with some good ideas. But no, obviously, Simon, always enjoy our chats as two aging musician, two aging musician aficionados. Always good to chat and sort of poke around some of this stuff. But yeah, all I can do for now is thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Jason. And it's been fun to to listen to your podcast and hear the stories of the other PMs that kind of came before me. And now you can go back and figure out which of the two categories you started with I fit in, or if you need to create a third for legacy or crusty guy.
It's fine. We'll work it out and we'll make it available. But no, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.